Welcome back. I don't know what day it is as far as our numbers, but we're really winding down, and I just got some new equipment. I'm using it. I don't really know how. I got this little microphone here, so I want to just try it out. You're the beta group. I have a few things that I wanted to share, some stories to tell, real-time, real-life stories, because they completely roll into what we've been talking about. And I think it's important to share these stories because I think that it is one thing to intellectually know something, and then, so that's knowledge, right? Let's define the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Intellectually knowing something is knowledge. Applying it in your daily life is wisdom. And you can listen to me talk all you want, but if you aren't going to take what you're learning and apply it daily, then at least it's a seed planted. Eventually, one day, you'll be like, oh, and that's the feeling. That's the difference between knowledge and wisdom. I love that feeling. Sometimes I'll read something over and over. I have it memorized. I could speak on it. I know it. But when it is in my bones, when it is integrated, it's almost like a light bulb goes off, and I'm like, that is what that means. There's this clarity around it that is not just cerebral, it is embodied. Big difference, big difference. So I want to share some stories that happened today because it was a great opportunity for me to apply the process that I have gone over in the past 3+ weeks in mini doses, right? There's the big picture of our lives, and there are the deep wounds and the deep traumas that we want to work on, and we want to transform and transmute so that they support us rather than suffocate us. But then there are the little things, right? There are these little moments where there are repercussions of those deeper wounds, but they're really more benign, and if you don't pick up on it, you miss an opportunity to heal that bigger wounds in a really graceful, easy way. It's all about awareness and mindfulness, but today I had to reach out to a few friends. I am building a new website with expanded offerings, and it's so exciting. Creating content, all of it is it feels so right. At the same time, it's daunting. It's hard work, and we're up to the part. And of course, yes, I will share all of that information with you towards probably the last day or so, but I'm up to the part where I need some testimonials. So I reached out to a few friends and clients, people that I have worked with, and I asked them, would they mind just writing a short blurb for me to put on my website? And the response was overwhelming for me. When they started coming in, I was reading them and I felt that cringy feeling of, oh my gosh, like, is this true? Do they really mean this? Am I don't, it's that imposter syndrome, right? It was right in my face. It was also that inner critic that, wow, I don't know what they see in me because I don't feel this particular way, or however it shows up for you, but that's how it was showing up for me. I felt embarrassed. That is the perfect word. I felt embarrassed reading them. On the deepest level, all any of us want is to be seen, heard, acknowledged, and loved, right? That's it. And when it comes to my work, my honestly, my life's deepest purpose, my dharma, to have people acknowledge that I'm on that path, and not only am I walking it, but it is having a profound effect on people around me. I should feel overjoyed at that. But instead, I felt embarrassed. So I caught myself because one of the people this is a similar story, also happened this morning. One of the people that I asked to write a testimonial for me said, "Oh, I'll do anything for you. I'm just so not confident in my writing." And this woman is brilliant. She actually had such an impact on me just by recognizing my work. That's how much I respect her. And she was nervous about her words. I mean, it was mind-blowing to me. So I told her how I felt. I said, "Do you know how impactful it was the day that we met?" Her recognizing that my work had value, especially at that time. At that time, I had just started teaching yoga as a complementary therapy for post-traumatic stress. And it wasn't common at the time. I even created my own flow around it. And I utilized my background as a nurse and my knowledge of the nervous system before all of this was a thing. I just knew that when you're in flow, even though your breath is being regulated, when you're in a hypervigilant state, you need more muscle loading and things like that. A flow actually generates more heat and energy in the body, which most of these service members did not need. Anyway, I digress. But I created this entire program, and I could see the effects happening before my eyes in individuals. But to have someone with her knowledge, she is an expert in the field of trauma, to have someone acknowledge that, it was really life-changing for me. And when I said that to her, she was like, "Oh, you're just being kind." No, I'm not being kind. I'm being serious. So she couldn't accept the compliment back. And it just sent me on this deep dive in my mind. I started to just pick things apart, and there's more to it than not being able to accept a compliment. There's multiple levels. There's, of course, our own personal historical level where our wounds are showing, right? You don't feel worthy. You don't want to appear cocky. You don't want to be conceited. You come from that space of lack, you're never enough, you're never good enough. There's always room for improvement, yes, but we'll never improve if we don't accept where we're at. So these are deeper wounds. But then there's also this other level that is more interactive, and that is this idea of flow and sacred reciprocity. Sacred reciprocity is is the divine energy that is in transactional relationships, right? So it's the give and the take. And there has to be, if you want to achieve this level of sacred reciprocity, there has to be equal amounts of giving and equal amounts of receiving, equal amounts of offering, equal amounts of allowing. And often, women especially are really good at the giving, and they're not good at the receiving. When I first started this work, this is another example of this inability, not just to accept compliments, but my inability to receive. I couldn't accept money from my work. Like, I was spending hours traveling back and forth and, creating classes and content and all of this, and then just the energy of going and doing the class, and I wouldn't accept any work. I mean, any money. And in my mind, I felt that was serving me, which it did, especially at that time because I was a relatively new teacher. I needed the experience, and it did serve me in that sense. But after a while, as this up-leveling begins, there has to be an exchange, an equal exchange of energy. You cannot just do your work for free. You cannot be in a relationship where you're the one that's always, always giving and the other person is always, always taking. What happens in those scenarios? We know it all too well. We've been in them in all different ways, shapes, and forms, right? You get resentful, you get burnt out. The person that's always giving starts to feel taken advantage of. And the person that's always taking, there's no investment there. It's like, oh, easy come, easy go. So there has to be an awareness of where we're investing our time, where we're investing our energy, and what we're taking in return for all of those things. This way, we stay in the flow and we allow other people to stay in the flow. So when someone, going back to the compliment, when someone gives you a compliment and you don't receive it well, it's actually like you're handing back a gift. You're putting a barrier in the way of their energy, of their giving energy. So catch yourself. I noticed this about myself quite a while ago, and I've been working on it ever since, and damn, it's a tough one. It still creeps in. It still creeps in. But I'm more aware of it now, and so when it does creep in, when that inner critic, that imposter syndrome starts to rear its ugly face, I basically try to take a step back. I take a step back and I just accept. I just say thank you. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to rationalize it. You don't have to make excuses for anything. You can literally just be open and say thank you. I started doing this, like I said, years ago, and it was mainly with compliments. So, everyone knows this one. You have on an outfit and someone comes up to you and says, "Oh, I love your shoes." And you're like, "Oh, these old shoes?" Or this shirt, I got this on the sale rack in TJ Maxx, or whatever, right? You start immediately self-deprecating or minimizing or just taking the joy out of the compliment, you know? So when I first heard about this, I started just saying thank you, even when it went against everything inside of me. You know, like I immediately wanted to just start explaining myself or minimizing or and I don't know why we do that. I think it basically comes from this feeling, again, lack of self-worth. Now sometimes, especially when it comes to our outward appearance, this is I should say for me, this is the case. I hope it resonates with others. When it comes to our outward appearance, if you're someone who is a little insecure or you have a history of trauma, maybe you don't want to be seen in that way. When someone acknowledges that they're looking at you and they appreciate what they see, it's sometimes uncomfortable. And we all have the intuition and the inner knowing to know when a compliment is heartfelt or when it's not, you know, that happens too. And you can just say thank you to that too, right? You just let it be, let it be. When you accept a compliment in that way, a heartfelt compliment, it strengthens the flow between you and that person. The same exact thing goes for money. If you are providing a service and the person is so appreciative of it, there has to be an exchange of currency. I don't mean that it doesn't have to always be money. It could be the barter system. It could be a meal. It could be anything, right? It could be a gift. But that has to be predetermined and it has to feel right for both parties. That's important. That's important because you always want to be fair in transactions. You always want to be fair in transactions. You don't want to try to take advantage of people and you don't want to be taken advantage of. And it all goes back to this, you know, wanting to maintain the sacred reciprocity, the sacred flow. If we want to look at this on an even bigger scale, we can look at the earth. We have been taking and taking and taking raw materials from the earth and not always being conscious of replacing them or doing them or doing it, you know, harvesting and all of that in a kind way. So there's a lack of balance there in our relationship with our environment. And we're beginning to see the effects of that. It's so interesting when you look at things like that. And believe me, we're not all farmers and we're not all, you know, cutting down trees in the rainforest. I get that. But even in our little microcosm of life, being a little bit more conscious of our waste, right, can bring things back into balance. So if you're always drinking, you know, drinking water bottles, maybe just getting a hydro flask or a glass bottle or something, a thermos, where you are decreasing what's being tossed into landfills. So many examples of this, but I want to bring it back to us and I want to share a little practice that I do when this comes up for me in a strong way. So today, for example, when I started reading these testimonials and feeling that inner critic and the imposter syndrome and that sense of embarrassment, and I sat back, I closed my eyes, and this is something that I do often around a lot of different things because it's my way. I tend to be in my head, and that's what these thoughts are. They're not from our space of truth. They're from our minds. So I like to just tap back into my heart and my belly. So I'm going to switch my hands up here because the microphone, my fancy microphone. But I just close my eyes. I put one hand on my heart. I put one hand on my belly. And I don't start a whole breathing practice. What I simply do is close my eyes, pull my awareness in and down. I soften everything. I enjoy the sweetness of my breath, the gift, the privilege of my inspiration and my exhalation. I follow that breath into my heart space, and I feel the rise and fall of my belly. And I remind myself that I am worthy. I am worthy of all the good things that find their way to me. I remind myself that I have invested countless hours of time and energy honing my skills. And I remind myself that nothing feels better than being in the flow. I live for the moments where I feel perfectly in flow with everything around me. And in the softness of my breath, I allow myself to open, receive, and be completely embraced by every good word, every sweet action, every ounce of acknowledgement. And I own it. I own it so that I can offer it back to every being around me. And that kind of shifts things, right? If you want to try that yourself, it really does shift things. It brings you home, and you feel so sweet and held and full of grace. I hope that throughout your day, you notice these little opportunities to put your process into action. You know, understanding what I'm saying is knowledge, and it's wonderful to have that. But putting it into action, living it daily, that is wisdom. That is wisdom. When you feel things in your bones, when they become integrated into who you are and how you live your daily life, that's wisdom. So take advantage of these little opportunities. When you catch yourself in a thought like that, when you catch yourself repeating a pattern, it could be something that's so innocuous that no one else would even notice, right? But you notice it. You know that you're out of alignment. You know that voice that tells you you're not good enough is trying to get on the loudspeaker. When that happens, slow it down, step back, allow what the world is showing you of yourself. Allow it to be seen, because we're always looking at ourselves through this lens, this cloudy lens that is filled with old stories and old patterns and ways of being. generational trauma, all sorts of things cloud up our lens. But when someone gives us the gift of being a mirror, of being able to see ourselves from a different perspective, when they allow us to capture our own beauty, not from a place of being conceited, but from a place of love, and not because we desire to be validated, but because we have an opportunity to grow, to heal, to own the perfection that we inherently are, we should take it. We should take that opportunity and be so grateful for it. So I'll be practicing that, and I hope that you will too. Sending you all so much love, and I will see you tomorrow. Now let's hope I could get this on YouTube.